Welcome to Conversations with Caitlin. I am absolutely delighted to share my guest with you this afternoon. As many of you know, part of my show is going to be talking about my passion, which is nonprofit and philanthropy. And it goes without saying that it takes a village to do this kind of work. So today with me, I have my dear friend, someone I admire tremendously, Maria Tucker. Maria is a PhD, first of all, ladies and gentlemen. She is the executive director for the Jeremiah program here in Las Vegas. This is a national nonprofit, and we're going to get into the work that they do here a little bit later. But I was so fortunate to meet Maria when we took part in the Jameson Fellowship, which is an amazing leadership program here in Southern Nevada. So without further ado, welcome Maria Tucker to Conversations with Caitlin.
Thank you so much. Thanks for that great introduction, Caitlin. I'm so honored to be here with you. And you know, the PhD, all it means is piled higher and deeper. So,
write it down, pin it. I love it. I love it. And I think that is an understatement for the work that we're doing every day in nonprofit.
Absolutely.
So Maria, first of all, because you know, girl, I love a good drink, whether it's coffee, a little cocktail, a little something. So I'm dying to know what's in the glass.
Water?
Oh, water. Oh, it's the Sacramento kind. Okay, well, cheers to you and cheers to me, honey.
Jesus did the miracle,
with the
right?
Jesus miracle. Yes, even nonprofit professionals require a little liquid courage every here and there, or to take the edge off from the week.
Absolutely.
So, Maria, one of the reasons I was so inclined and so honored that you said yes to this is because you are one of those people when I met you that I'm like, this isn't somebody that just says it, they live it and they do it. And I think oftentimes in this work, people do not understand that this is very rigorous. It is piled high and deep every single day. And it's not often that we get a chance to kind of step back and really have those moments together like we did at Jameson. So for my listeners, I would love for you to kind of share who you are, your origin story, and how you got involved with the Jeremiah program.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks so much. I like to start with family. And oftentimes we leave family to the end, but we know that our stories really are rooted in our starting and in our families.
Yes.
So I am the last of 10 children of Vera and Ace Tucker. I'm also the mother of Taj, who is in Brooklyn and too far from his mom.
Oh, Taj, come back. Mom needs you here in Vegas.
Absolutely, again. So I got started in this work, of course, watching my mom be a very faith-driven woman and watching her do the work that she did in her church, with her community, always counseling folks. A lot of the soundtrack of my childhood is my mother counseling other divorcees.
I see.
She started a divorced and separated group at a Catholic church, which was not really a popular thing at that point.
Right. I was going to say, as a Catholic myself, it's kind of one of those, we don't talk about that. Yeah. Except, in 2025, yes, we do.
We do.
Yes.
Absolutely. So she was a great counselor, and a lot of my inspiration comes from her. So when I graduated from undergrad with a psych degree and a baby, I took the first offer that I had. Right. Which was a great alignment for me. It was working with young girls who they called at that time emotionally unregulated, and it was in Hollywood, on Hollywood Boulevard.
Wow.
36-bed facility, and I still remember some of those girls' names, and that was quite some time ago.
They stick with you, don't they? The people who make an impact on this work.
And whose stories, they share their stories, and you're able to connect around story. And they had an impact on me. And so I learned a lot from them, just so grateful. And then from there, I got into higher education. And so I spent over 20 years in higher education administration. And now I run a program for single moms, very similar to myself and my own story.
Yes.
And it's a college access program, essentially. We work with them to support them getting to and through college and around economic mobility. So they're all moms from Vegas or who live in Vegas with young children, and we support both generations, both mom and their kids. So.
And that is tremendous work. I think, one of the things that deeply moved me when we first met, and we kind of, for anyone who has not done one of these leadership programs, they want to get into the deep work very quickly. And what that often means for us when we're involved in that, especially as philanthropists and nonprofit sector workers, is, we're carrying a lot around. And sometimes we forget that our personal, I love what you said, that family is our origin, but that could be a good or a bad thing.
Yeah.
It's a teachable moment.
Absolutely.
But I think also just knowing that your lived experience when those women come through the door, they know that you're not giving them lip service. Mm-hmm. You're saying, hey, I've been there with you.
Yeah,
I've been there in the trenches of motherhood and trying to work and trying to pay the bills. And I don't care how many resources you have. It is so hard. Mm-hmm. But then when you take away things like housing, food, clothing, I mean, it becomes a mountain to climb, I would imagine.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I often tell moms when I first meet them, you can call me Maria, you can call me Dr. Maria. And I don't need you to call me Dr. Maria just because I need you to call me doctor, but I want you to know that it's possible. That the journey that I walked is really one to leave footprints in the sand for you. To leave footprints on a pathway for you, all the way to a PhD, if that's what you need, if that's what you want.
And that's big,
it's
especially
a gift.
Woman to woman, to hear another woman say, you can do it.
Yes.
And we stand on the shoulders of women that came before us.
Absolutely.
Whether that's family, like you're talking about your mother, we kind of off camera, we're having a conversation about family and mamas and siblings. And, to know that we are able to take some of that goodness and what they brought to our life forward and infuse that into what we do for work feels so the obligation, the stakes are high because we don't want to disappoint them. But I also think we are such a gift in our own right as human beings because we are able to take what we've learned and transform that and move in ways that maybe we learned something we don't want to do. Maybe we've learned something that changes the trajectory of our life forever.
Yeah, changes generations for us. The piece about making them proud, essentially, right? And carrying forth their legacy and the things you were sharing about your mom too, Caitlin. It's like what she did when she first got here to start this program. I think it's still going, is it not?
So Flight for Life, which my mom helped start here at Valley Hospital, it has transformed into another program. So we have another version. I think at one point we had Mercy Air out here in Southern Nevada. But
it's incredible.
Pioneering, right?
Yes.
Forging your own way. One of I think the biggest gifts of my mom as a daughter to her was to watch her say exactly what you just said. Here's how we do it. We put our head down, we put the work in, and we move. And also, I think, to what you were saying kind of reminded me of this memory of my mom. My mom came from very humble beginnings. She worked for everything she ever had. And I think one of the things that always, I get so emotional, I think about it. My mom was one of the first women accepted to Stanford Medical School, but because of resources, could never go. And so I loved that when she was precepting young nurses and working with them, if they wanted to get their NP, their nurse practitioner, or go for an MD or a DO or a PA, she was their champion. She was like, I will work with your schedule. I will make it happen. And I think there's something profound to be said about that we sometimes, the best lesson, and I think we see it in this work so often, is sometimes the dreams we may not be able to realize ourselves, we see that potential in others. And I think one of the gifts of what we do is it is always about looking forward and how we make our community stronger.
Absolutely. And seeding into the hopes of others, right?
Yes.
Literally. And I see it and feel it in your mom's dream in you.
I do too.
Right.
I actually, Conversations with Caitlin was her idea for the name of this. So Mom, if you're listening, I'm sitting here with an amazing woman, Maria. You would love her. But it is. And I think I want to touch a little bit on something you said, because it really, I think, is at the heart of the work that we do. And it's storytelling. And I would love to hear from you. How has storytelling really impacted the work you're doing with the Jeremiah program and really the work you do as an incredible member of our community?
Thank you. So storytelling to me has the power to transform. And whereas we can make sweeping policy changes, right? Typically, those sweeping policy changes come from story. They're based on story. Somebody had to share their story somewhere, or a story of someone else at some point,
right,
to spark an idea for a policy change. Story also has the power to deeply connect. In a book called Together by the Surgeon General Vivek Murthy, he talks about a pandemic of loneliness that we're in.
Oh, wow.
And just the rise of mental health issues that often stem from people feeling lonely and alone. And storytelling has a power to connect. We can say, I have a really hard time with just like small talk.
Yeah, I know this about you, girl. First time I met you, I was like, how you doing? You're like, next question. All right. I said, you know what? At this juncture, ma'am, you are going to be one of my greatest teachers. She said, ask me something that matters. Okay. All right, girl.
Yeah, I have a really hard time because I'm really interested in people's story. And largely because there was a time in my life where I really enjoyed small talk, where I hid behind small talk.
Yes.
And one of my greatest teachers, his name was Sergio. He was one of my team members, one of my staff members, and he would ask me question after question after question, and I'd be so uncomfortable. And I finally told him, like, why are you asking me all these questions?
Yeah.
And he's like, I'm interested. And it's one of the best ways to demonstrate care, to ask profound questions or deep questions, to listen. Listening is often a lost art. So it's the storytelling piece isn't simply about the sharing, but it's also about the listening, about being present in the moment with people, and the gift
of what they're giving you.
Absolutely.
Telling your story and what, on the deep ends, bearing your soul, right?
Yes.
Which we've all had those moments. I think in nonprofit, we get almost kind of voluntold into those positions, right?
Yeah.
Of bearing our souls for why we care about what we care about. But stories are also, I find it so fascinating when I've had the chance to work with Indigenous communities. They are, in my opinion, the origin of how storytelling should be.
Absolutely.
They pass it on. They sit. They don't have their phones and things distracting them.
Yeah.
They want to look you in the eyes, and they want to hear about, the pride also of where we come from, right? You and I were talking earlier. It's not always pretty.
No.
Our journey as a human being, the human experience, is so profound and complex. But yet, sometimes, to your point, I mean, the pandemic of loneliness, that is gutting to me.
Yeah.
to know that there are people out there that may never speak a word to another person in a day.
In a day, absolutely. We have shut-ins like that, right? I think the other thing too, because you asked about JP and storytelling, and JP, there's two aspects of storytelling I think that are worth mentioning, and one is the North Star of shifting the narrative, the national narrative around single moms.
Yes.
So many of our moms talk about feeling the shame. So they go through an empowerment and leadership series. And part of this is sharing story. They actually develop their own story, share their story. And they talk most often about shame. The shame they feel of being a single mom, whether they were never married or they were once married and they were divorced or they're widowed and they still feel a heavy shame. So Jeremiah has set out to shift the narrative.
Flip that script on that.
And focus on how empowered these women are, how focused they are, how they are betting on themselves and their kids. So
in Las Vegas, our betting town, baby.
Yeah,
that's right.
Investing, betting, all the good stuff. And then the other piece is in building our local Jeremiah program community.
Yes.
So being able to be vulnerable with each other, to be able to say, I need X, I need Y, can somebody pick up my kid? That's where you can get when you're able to start trusting by understanding deeply who each other is.
And knowing that asking for help, I think this is a problem in general for people, but for women especially.
Absolutely.
That asking for help is not a sign of weakness. It is in fact a sign of your strength and understanding that I cannot do it alone.
Yeah.
And
a
I
very
need you.
Deep awareness, self-awareness, and industriousness, of resourcefulness.
Yes. Well, and I think what's so interesting about what you just said, the word shame, right? We all, when you hear that word, like I felt my internal self go, oh, I hate it. I hate feeling shameful. But I think there's something you inherently, by doing that work with these mothers, are doing work that so many of us could benefit from. I think that so often, and one of the reasons I wanted to do this, Maria, Conversations with Caitlin, is that I want to get real with people. I am so sick, and it happens so often in our industry, of these fake surface level conversations, which is why I immediately gravitated towards you. You said, we're pulling you right out of your comfort zone. But I think the reality is, and our world and our country desperately is calling out for this, is authenticity. When I ask you how you are, I'm not looking for you to go, I'm good, I'm fine, I'm this, it's good. I'm asking out of sincerity. I tell my team I work with at the museum, when I say, how are you? Know that I'm not asking for lip service. I want to know. And so often when you just give people a second, they share things. Sometimes some people are private, right? They don't want to share. But a lot of the times they're like, hey, I had a rough week. I haven't been feeling well. I'm feeling pressure from we're like diamonds, constantly under pressure. And I think that especially with raising children, there is a lack of sacredness to mothers and to children, I think, that we are experiencing on a global level. And what is so, I think, heartbreaking and encouraging all at once is that being a mother, raising a child, you are doing one of the most powerful jobs known to mankind.
Absolutely.
Which is creating legacy, creating that next generation. Is my child, it's not about them being the smartest and the best. Are they kind? Are they respectful? Do they value others? Do they see the innate gifts and beauty of others? And I just know see, now I'm throwing down the gauntlet. I need to come visit your building because you recently opened a new space.
Yes, we did. We did in the last year. It was just really incredible and so grateful. So we've been operating here in Vegas since 2022. and just opened a 5,000 square foot space
Amazing.
across the street from the famous pawn shop in downtown.
Yes, the what are they? TLC.
Pawn
they were on
Stars?
one of those, Pawn Stars show. Oh my goodness, prime time location.
Yes,
honey,
we got it. We got it. So yeah, just open that up, and what it's allowed us to do is to really have a place to call home. And what I like to think about as really a student union that actually thought about moms and kids as we were designing it. So we have a wellness room. We have where mom can chill out, and we've had yoga in that room. We've had our Tiffany.
Yes, try yoga. Yes.
From
She's
Try
amazing.
Yoga.
Shout
She
out.
is.
Tiff Wheeler,
Shout out,
we love
Tiff.
you, babe.
We love you, girl. And also there's aromatherapy in there, and just a place to sit, and a playroom for kids. So and multiple spaces that kids can move to while mom is working. So one of my favorite things that happen is when moms come in and they just sit down and study. And the kids will just run around, go in the playroom, and we're all in there, so we can kind of coexist with her and do some care as well when we need to. But it feels like home. Oh. And my mom was a single mom as well, and she was divorced and had 10 kids, and so she passed in 2018. And I was just praying all through the design and the construction, and I would bring all the construction workers together and say, I just want to let you know what you're doing here. You're seeding into people's dreams. People's dreams will be born here. They'll be fulfilled in this space. So I just want you to know that, and how important you are in creating what's going to happen here. It starts with you, and largely, inspired by my angel, right? And so,
and she was clearly watching out with the dream coming from the dust up to what it is today. Oh my goodness,
she's incredible. So yeah, I first day I walked in by myself after we got the certificate of occupancy, and I just couldn't hold myself together because she was there. She moved in that space and said, "She did.
We'll do it for everybody."
Us. Yeah, this is us.
I like what you said about everyone playing a role in the work that we do. I think so often, and you and I know this, as an executive director, I know this as a development professional, we are pounding the pavement, we are out in everybody's face at every event trying to get those dollars, babe, to get that support. And I think, it's so neat to hear you say what you just said, that when those workers were there sharing the impact of what they're building and what they're doing, our jobs are not one person. You physically cannot do it.
Absolutely.
And I think when we have the privilege to work with teams, whether they're external or internal, reminding people the tremendous gift they're giving the world to be here and to offer those services, those programs, those life-changing spaces where you do not know who people will be. No. And to know that those dreams, you said the word hope earlier. Hope to me is possibility. Yeah. It's that little flame that keeps all of us going every day, even on the tough days. And boy, have we had some tough days, girl. So I want to go back because I think this is important, and I know you are like a Rolodex of just information. When it comes to our country, specifically in the U.S., with single moms, what does that look like when you talk about the percentage of community that is comprised of these women, raising families, working, going to school, doing all of those things solo? Yeah.
So I actually just did an op-ed. I just wrote a piece because it was Poverty Awareness Month. It's Poverty Awareness Month this month.
Yes.
And so I don't have them off the top of my head, but in Nevada, in Las Vegas, there are about 8,000 single mother-headed households, and the vast majority, obviously, it won't surprise anyone, live in poverty.
Right.
And the number, of course, there's single father-headed households.
Absolutely.
And far fewer of them, and far fewer of them in poverty.
Right.
So, and not to say that there aren't challenges, but yeah.
Raising children in and of itself, right, is the greatest life challenge I think most of you as parents experience.
It's, and then in terms of a college degree, 8% of single moms nationwide have a college degree.
Wow.
So for us to even graduate 50% of the moms that come in,
you're moving that needle.
Yes, step by step, little by little. And I think what I'm most proud of is in the work that we do is the longer term connection that we have. Like I said, really sharing story and being vulnerable, and really, it's not simply about, you come in and you pick up one thing and you leave. It really is about families getting to know families, and our family coaches getting to know families. All of our coaches, we have 3 family coaches, and our family services director, they know our moms' stories.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, and I'm so grateful for that, because that's the game changer. That's when you feel cared for and you feel held in your hardest moments.
And people that are cheering you on and pushing you and saying, yes, you can do this.
You got this.
What a gift. And also, I love that you're connecting mothers going through the same thing.
Yeah.
I think, again, that I can't stop thinking about it, the pandemic of loneliness. Like, to know that there are other people, and I feel that's a theme in our work in philanthropy and nonprofit, is connecting people and saying you are not alone, and there are those who have come before you and those who will come after you who will be profoundly affected by your life and your story.
And I think with the Jameson Fellowship, of course, it was really about fostering connection and breaking down silos, because we often find ourselves like that as nonprofit folks, that where, we pound the pavement, like you said, and we're very focused on our own specific goal and not necessarily the North Star for Vegas or for Clark County, because we have to be in some ways. So programs like Jameson really help to break down those walls between us and expand our vision and see how can we connect with each other? How can we cooperate and collaborate around this work to make it stronger and to make things more seamless for families that we're targeting.
And not reinvent the wheel. If you're doing this work, I want to know so that in my back pocket, right? My friends joke, you're the utilitarian friend. You got somebody for everybody. You got a plumber, you got a light guy, you got a nail lady, you got a this. So then also in that arsenal, I say, I also have these amazing colleagues that have become friends, like family, that are doing work that sometimes I think a lot of people too, and I'm sure you see this in your work, Maria, people have never had to access a social service or ask for that help. And they're like, where do I go? And you're sitting here going, in your mind, you're like, well, we know just because we do this, it's like breathing.
All the time.
But the community, they don't. And so what would you say is the biggest... It's like a two-parter. Okay. So what would you say is the biggest challenge you face in this work right now with nonprofit and philanthropy? And how do you see us kind of combating that or overcoming that challenge?
Oh gosh, that's a great question. I'm going to flip it a little bit and start with something really positive about our experience here. And I realize it's not everybody's experience, but Las Vegas, so I've been in Vegas for 4 years. I came during the pandemic, and 4.5. And so, of course, 2 years like indoors. And then I took this role. And I've had family up here for the better part of 20 years, 15, 20 years.
Yeah.
And my view of Vegas was through my sister who worked in a casino.
Right.
And was a single mom raising her 3 kids here. And that's a very different picture than me as coming in as an executive director into nonprofit. And I gotta say, it's really surprised me in the best of ways. In the best of ways. Yes. Warm, welcome. People saying we've wanted a program like this for so long.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah. Women who've been doing women's work for years and have said, we've talked about this so much and we're so glad you're here.
Yeah.
And that's just a kind of like starting point that's hard to forget. And I feel wrapped and supported and loved on and all of the things, all of the best of things.
Yeah.
Having said that, I think one of the things that I think a lot about is when we're doing the work, as you've so clearly articulated, Caitlin, it's a lot. It's a lot just to do the work, and so I hope for us that some of the leaders in philanthropy in the Valley know this, and they are taking huge strides in trust-based philanthropy.
Yeah.
And we've got some incredible leaders in trust-based philanthropy.
Mm-hmm.
And I just really hope that, there can be continued learning and continued moving in that direction where, there's a thoughtfulness about what's on our plates as leaders, and leaders who are mission driven and passionate and mission focused, and what it takes to continue to fund what we fund, and if there could be a compassion and gentleness in the application.
You mean
processes.
For applications and reporting and all of we're going to give you $5,000, but here, and why I immediately thought of you for this inaugural conversation in the philanthropy spaces, it's true. And I think sometimes we are in philanthropy, sometimes we are fear driven because we don't want to say the wrong thing and we don't want to upset someone. I know recently the nonprofit legislative group met at Discovery, and some of the leaders said, "What do you guys need?" And someone proudly stood up in the back, I wish I knew who it was, and said, "You know what, the compliance and reporting, the amount of hours, if we logged what that took to say we are doing what we said we're going to do, is monstrous." And I think it's a big part of this work, the physical and emotional toll that takes, the manpower or woman power. But then also what you just said pulls deeply at my heart. We don't leave our work at the office. And I am certain, knowing you are such an empath like I am. I think you almost have to be an empath to do this work. To know that we take this home, sometimes we're taking home the pain of the clients or the group that we're serving. We're taking home the feeling that, remember that episode of I Love Lucy where she's trying to shove all the bonbons in her mouth and her hat, and she's trying to shove them everywhere. Like, I loved that show when I was little. I was such a Nick at Night. Me and my brother were like 70-year-old little women and men sitting and watching Nick at Night. And I'll never forget that episode, but I feel that sometimes in my day, like, there's not enough hours, there's not enough money, there's not enough people. And I think sometimes, to your point, my commitment I've made to our organization, to Discovery Children's Museum, and the commitment I've made to this community is that I am not pulling punches this year. I am not sugarcoating it. If you ask me what I need, I'm going to tell you what I need. I'm not going to say maybe this much. Nope, it's this much.
Lean in.
And yes, and get real, because it is wildly exhausting and so unproductive for us to your point
fearful.
though. Yes, and then feel like we're not doing enough. We're not doing it well enough. We're not, we aren't enough, right? That I've had that in my career where I get to a point where I'm like, I am not enough as a person. And then you say to yourself,
so easy.
Ding.
Yes.
Okay, we got to take that off. So what would be your advice? This is a great segue into my burning question. To people interested in being in philanthropy, what would be your best advice? And then when it comes to this, how do you separate Maria, who is the executive director, PhD, piled high daily, piled high deep. I said that wrong. I got to get it right because we got to clone that. Piled high deep. As the executive director, like, what's your advice to people wanting to enter this space, whether it's volunteering, working professionally in this space, but then also how do we create balance and separation in some way, not in a negative way, from ourselves as human beings and the work that we do?
That's a great, hard question.
It's loaded,
Caitlin.
girl. I loaded.
I said, you did. You did. That was hard.
I know you can handle it. That's why I do that. See?
So I think my contribution probably is for people wanting to get into the space. I don't think we talk enough about philanthropists as people. They're just people, just like us. Yes. And I often think about what it would be like to feel as if the vast majority of time that people are reaching out to me is to ask me for money.
Right.
I know what it's like to be a mom and to hear my name over and over and over. I need Cheerios. I need an egg. I need this. Yeah. I need, and it's exhausting.
Yeah.
And it's tiring, of course, with the kid. They somehow load up with dopamine or, and it's
the energy balls that they are.
And they just warm our hearts. But just trying to stay in a place, I think it's really important to stay in a place of humanity and dignity through every aspect of our work. Storytelling in the space of fundraising is really important.
Oh, it's our lifeblood, isn't it?
Yes, and I mean that from a vulnerability standpoint on both ends. To be able to share time and space with people, whether they're philanthropists or whether they're moms or whether they're my team,
yes,
my colleagues, across the country, my cohort fellows, that remembering that even philanthropists may be struggling with a hard story in their family.
Yes.
They may be struggling with a child who has health needs or, whatever it is. And that comes first. That comes first. I remember the great and wise Guard Jameson telling me
yes.
that he's like, it's 3 cups of tea. You don't ask. And honestly, I'm going to tell you this. I haven't asked. I've never asked.
I believe that about you.
I've never asked, and I don't believe in it.
Yeah.
I don't believe in it. I believe in faith, and I believe I have my angels, and it's just about sharing time and space with people and having them feel whole.
And that connection, I think, if you can take anything away from this discussion, what Maria just said, treating our donors, our philanthropists, our decision makers, right? We have a lot of those in Southern Nevada, we are so fortunate. But treating them like human beings and not a bank account and not a checkbook, and also pardon me, recognizing that there is something about what we do that draws them in.
Yeah.
One of my favorite conversations I used to have when I tour, prospective donors or partners at the museum is I'd say, when you were a kid, what did you want to be when you grow up?
Oh, love it.
And without fail, they would laugh. They would look at me. They'd say, that's kind of a good question, but then they would tell you, I wanted to be an artist. I wanted to be an astronaut.
Yeah.
I wanted to be an NBA player, right? And you realize and recognize, and we desperately are craving this, I think, as people, our humanity.
Absolutely.
I don't care if you have $1 or 5 million.
Yep.
I don't care if you're a woman or a man, if you're black or you're white, if you're gay or you're straight. We all have so many commonalities. We are so much more alike than we give ourselves credit for. And I'm sure you've heard this in your work. There are people that we idolize and look up to, and they have all the money, and they're doing, and some of them do such incredible things in this community. And then they'll tell you a story about their youth, that they were raised by a single mother.
Yeah.
And because of her, they get to be and do what they do today. Or the Children's Museum, when, we had a muralist, he was seriously so amazing. His name's Miguel. He did the mural in our Discovery Lab, and he's sitting up on a scaffolding. I remember this today. This was 2019 when he was doing this. And he's painting. He was an artist in residence, and he was a part of the Zappos team at the time. And I said, "Can I ask you a question?" He said, "Sure." I said, "How'd you become an artist?" Is your family a bunch of artists?
Yeah.
Were you just that kid that you're like savant? You grew up just knowing that you were doing that? And he said, "No." He said, "When I was little, I grew up in LA. My family lived on public assistance. I had a free bus pass, and the LA Art Museum was free on the weekends. And that little boy would go get on that bus, and he would go down there. And so, every time I toured,
yes, we're gonna get ours.
We are. They're gonna be our neighbor. Yes. Our neighbors. But to hear that story from him, I tell it to anyone who will listen, because he just breathed life into why museums matter, why giving children access to the arts, to culture, to educational experiences that are play-based are so important, and adults too. We are children trapped inside adult bodies.
Yes.
And to that end, it is our job to not lose sight of what brought us joy when we were little, because oftentimes it's still the same when you're this age. You're just older now.
Right. But you can still do art projects and have joy.
And I love what you said. That's so important. Remember that your donors are people too, that your partners, that people who take an interest in what you do are interested typically because they have stories to share too.
Absolutely.
I love it.
One of my favorite stories is I was able to work on a Center for Community Partnerships at a college in Southern California. I almost said Southern Nevada.
I know you did, girl. You're like, I'm home here now. But we know, for the record, Maria is our LA girl. She just actually got back today, by the way, people. Today is, January 23rd for our listeners, because this will come out at a later date. But she just returned from her home of Los Angeles, checking on her people and being out there. But I interrupted you. I'm so sorry.
No, it's good. It was good. Heartwarming to be there. And I got to go by the Center for Community Partnerships.
Where you used to work.
Where I used to work.
Wow.
And it's named for our donor. And in a conversation that I had with him, he said, the center is what I'm most proud of in my life. And he's getting older. And so I'm really grateful. Thank you. And so that's the other piece of the philanthropy work, is like, it's so much about just helping people manifest their vision as well. Of course, the hope and the goal is that there's alignment.
Yes, our favorite word.
Yes.
Alignment.
Yes, alignment. And when we find that, it's a gift beyond just the funds, and that's what happened there. Was he he was seeding into his alma mater. He was seeding into education for marginalized folks. He was envisioning how colleges and universities at the beginning were supposed to be community connected. And so that was part of his vision. And we have the same ideas. So again, it was a village of people that got it done. But
the hope, right? Again, all of these things start with dreams and ideas and hope. And I think if anything this work has taught me is that hope and the inspiration that people take from hope literally changes the world. And, you know, I know sometimes in this work it feels so daunting, but to know that if we stopped what we did today, Maria, there are people directly impacted. And I think sometimes that's like the extra little sip of coffee in my cup, right? Is that, okay, this matters and it's important and people are counting on us. But then also, how do we build out that legacy? We create the next generation of nonprofit workers and employees and people who really see the humanity in this work, because it's not statistics and the beautiful photos and videos. It is, this is real. These are real people. The stories are real. And our hope is always that we are honoring those people. So girl, I could talk to you all day.
I know.
I could talk to you. This is also why my commitment to you is we are getting together more often in 2025. So
I hope so.
We are I'm manifesting.
Okay.
So 2 things. I want to know what, on the basis of hope, what keeps you hopeful, and why?
That's a good question. My child, of course, my adult child, keeps me hopeful. Even just his story and his journey, being my child.
What an honor.
Poor thing.
He was learning alongside mom, baby. Learn from the best.
He was. Oh my gosh, I got to tell you some stories.
We'll have to get him out on the pod when he visits.
Yeah. Ooh, let the cats out the bag.
Okay.
But definitely he gives me hope, and in saying that, it really is about next generation, and I think there's something around being in joy, standing in joy and standing in contentment that brings me hope. And what I mean by that is there's a lot going on right now. There's a lot of uncertainty.
Yep.
There's a lot of consternation. And to be steadfast about peace and contentment and standing in our joy, that's where I can sense hope. Yes. I have to do that, because otherwise, if I get too caught up, whether it's in the work day to day,
right,
in the news feed, in the algorithm
of life, yeah, boy, yes, don't we know it.
I can easily lose sight of hope. And so, but when I stand still, when I pray, when I make an active commitment to joy and make time for this, that's what brings me hope. This conversation, right?
It's
what we
sometimes
do.
The talking, right? Conversations are our greatest teacher.
Yeah.
And first of all, so grateful for this conversation. You make me better. I want you to know you are one of those nonprofit people, those leaders, those human beings that have pushed me more than you will ever know.
Thank you.
Your voice is so calm. I'm sure when everyone watches and hears this, even if you're just listening,
they don't fall asleep.
Oh, your voice is so calming. But I love what you said, because it's a choice. I think one of the greatest powers of humanity that makes us the most magnificent God, universe created thing, whatever you subscribe to, folks, is that when we choose to stand in that belief that life is joyful and it is peaceful and we are content, what a word, to feel like I have enough, I am enough, I'm doing enough. That's where your life changes. And I truly believe that that's why you have been so successful in what you've done and what you will do. So Maria, last round in the corner, baby.
Okay,
we made it to the finish. I would love for you to look in that camera and give our listeners a 1-minute mission pitch. If you could tell them anything, what is the silver lining, the highlights, the best parts of the Jeremiah program?
Oh, wow. My first my first mind went to a woman named Jessica. And you can go on Jeremiah Program's website and look at her story. She's born and raised here in Vegas, and her son Connor is really an inspiration. She and her son Connor. So when I think about the Jeremiah Program mission to disrupt poverty and foster economic mobility 2 generations at a time among single mothers and their children, I think about women like Jessica. I think about women like Quisha. I think about women like Tamika. And all of their stories are running through my mind. I also think about the warmth and even on occasion sternness of our family coaches that help get them to and through college enrollment. And graduation on the other side. Jeremiah Program is about fostering economic mobility, like I said, but it's also about connection and community and sisterhood. You know, behind every strong woman is another strong woman. And that's what we're building at the Jeremiah Program, is a community of sisters who are betting on each other and investing on themselves and their kids.
That was beautiful.
Thank you. That was real off the fly.
I liked it, but that's why I love it. That's what I love about you, Maria.
I could take this from the website.
We copy paste, baby, but with a little Maria flair. Everyone, thank you so much for tuning in to listen this week to Conversations with Caitlin. My amazing guest, Maria Tucker, the executive director for the Jeremiah program here in Las Vegas. We will have her social handles and information on their program. But thank you so much for sharing your story, your time, and most importantly, your tremendous heart for community. I'm so grateful for you.
Thank you. Appreciate you.